Okay, so one of the short stories uh, about Sherlock Holmes, well, actually, maybe three or four total in the whole canon, mention the United States or have an American connection to it. Of course, reading this study in Scarlet goes into great detail about that connection. But I wanted to take a little time here and talk about one of the short stories. It's called The Five Orange Pips. Um, and it's one of the 56 short stories um, from the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. Now, a pip is a seed. Like an orange seed or a grape seed. Back then, they called them pips. So this story was published in the Strand magazine in 1891. And it was later ranked, the story is one of the favorite Sherlock Holmes stories. It's one of the two Sherlock Holmes stories where Holmes's client dies after seeking help. And this really tears Sherlock Holmes up emotionally for a guy who has no emotion. So the plot is about a young gentleman named John Openshaw, and he's got a rather strange story. In 1869, his uncle, Elias Openshaw, had suddenly come back to England to settle in an estate just outside of London in West Sussex. After living for many, many years in the United States as a planter in Florida. And he served as a colonel in the Confederate Army. So he never married. So Elias allowed his nephew to stay at his estate. Elias goes on to say that strange incidents have occurred. One is thought, although John could go anywhere else in the house, he could never enter a locked room containing his uncle's trunks. Another peculiar thing was that in March 1883, a letter postmarked from India arrives for his uncle, the colonel, inscribed only KKK with 5 orange seeds, pips, enclosed. More strange things begin to happen. Papers from that locked room were hurriedly burnt, and the uncle draws up a will leaving the estate initially to his brother. The colonel's behavior becomes quite bizarre. He usually locked himself in his room and drank too much. And he would go shouting in his drunkenness with a pistol in his hand. And on May 2nd, 1883, he is found dead in a garden pool. His brother, Joseph, John's father, receives a letter postmarked from Dundee with the initials KKK and instructions to leave the papers on the sundial in the garden. Despite his son's urging, Joseph refused to call the police. 3 days later, Elias' father, Joseph, is found dead in a chalk pit. The only clue with which John Openshaw can furnish Holmes is a large page from his uncle's diary, marked March 1869, describing orange pips having been sent to 3 men, of whom 2 fled and the 3rd had been visited, which means killed. Holmes advises Openshaw to leave the diary page with a note on the garden sundial, telling of the burning of the colonel's papers. After Openshaw leaves, Holmes deduces from the time that has passed between the letter mailings and the deaths of Elias and his brother that the writer is on a sailing ship. Holmes also recognizes the KKK as the Ku Klux Klan, an anti-Reconstructionist domestic terrorist group in the South, until it suddenly collapses in 1869, and theorizes that this collapse was the result of the colonels meticulously taking their papers away to England. So we have means, motive, and opportunity here. The next day, there is a newspaper account that the body of John Openshaw has been found in the River Thames, and the death is believed to be an accident. Holmes checks sailing records of ships who were at different ports, and in January 1885 recognizes a Georgia registered bark named the Lone Star that he infers is a reference to Texas. Holmes confirms that the Lone Star has docked in London a week before the death. Holmes sends 5 orange pips to the captain of the Lone Star and then sends a telegram to the Savannah police claiming that the captain and 2 mates are wanted for murder. However, the Lone Star never arrives in Savannah due to a severe gale. The only trace of the boat is a ship's sternpost marked LS, sighted in the North Atlantic. At the time of the writing, the actual Ku Klux Klan was indeed broken and effectively defunct. And it would take decades before this 20th century revival, because it is still an organization today. Conan Doyle's taking it up in this story was in line with the recurrent theme of wild and violent Americans and other foreigners exporting their power struggles to Victorian Britain, which already formed the basis to the study in Scarlet, the very first Holmes mystery. So this is really one of those American environment stories that Sherlock Holmes gets involved with. Okay, so that's a little bit about the 5 Orange Pips. It's a real quick read or a real quick listen if you want to get the minute details of the story. There is an audio book that you can find on YouTube.